I'm Ryan.
I'm Schaefer.
And I'm Matt.
We're Dear Lord, and you're listening to the Doom Tomb.
This is the Doom Tomb Podcast, the podcast for all things stoner, doom, sludge, and a little bit of psych thrown in. My name is Chris. I am your host, and today we have a return guest. This is all about the drive. This is about the hustle, and this person has it. I've followed her on social media for a while, and it never ceases to amaze what she's up to, what she's reading, what she's just doing to better her life. And I figured this is the best time to get into it with a discussion. Before we do, doomtombpodcast@gmail.com. That is how to reach us. And don't forget, I have a show on craniumradio.com Sunday evenings, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check it out on the TuneIn app, Streema, Live 365, or craniumradio.com. Now, let's get into the interview. So today, we have a return of a lady that I haven't seen her in another band that she's been, but I have seen her in the band Witch Mountain, and she is the lead singer. Her name is Kayla Dixon. Kayla, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. It's so funny. I talked to you a while ago. We were Club Red in Mesa, Arizona, and that was on the Witch Mountain tour. And then I see all these other things because I know you've been in other bands. I actually saw you a while ago. We mentioned it in a band called Helion Prime. I don't know if you're interested. I have some footage from both of those shows if you want me to send them to you.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to see that.
So now I know enough about Witch Mountain, and we all do. Can you tell me a little bit about this project, Dress the Dead?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dress the Dead is a band that's been around, I want to say, for almost 4 years. Started by Craig LaCicero from Forbidden. And the original vocalist was Peter Dolving from The Haunted. And he kind of quit music, and that's when I kind of came in. I got a message from a mutual friend of mine and Craig's, and basically he had said, my friend Craig is looking for a singer for his band. You should think about auditioning. And so I did, and I got the gig, and it's been awesome ever since.
How was the change? Was there, as far as like crowd reaction, and having a male vocalist going to a female vocalist?
I didn't notice much of a reaction at all. I think because the band was only a year old at that point, that nobody really noticed. And those that did were very positive about it. So.
Like you weren't getting any of the, crossed arms, impress me, bro kind of attitude?
No. I mean, I tend to get that, like when I first come out on the stage, like wherever we are on tour or whatever, but, people quickly realize what they're dealing with. So it's not, it's a rare thing for me. And of course there's the hate that you get online, but that's just when people, don't know what you can do and they're making assumptions. So,
internet tough people or tough guys, tough gals, everybody. I mean, some of the comments you see are so, it's like, they're trolling, they're going for some garbage, but I can't see how that's going to happen with you, Kayla, because, if you follow Kayla Dixon on social media, you'll see that she has this one word that, I don't know if I'm talking like an old man or not, but it's called a hustle to me. It really is. I mean, you sing, you dance, you act, you kind of do it all. So, are you more now into music, or are you moving it because of like the current climate right now?
I try always to keep everything equal in my life, just simply for the fact that I'm not more passionate about one than the other.
Right.
I love, I've been acting since I was 5. I've been doing, musicals since I was 5. It's something that will always be with me and ingrained in me. But I'm also extremely passionate about rock and metal. So ideally, I want to be able to kind of go back and forth from touring to doing shows to back to touring and back to doing shows, and maybe fit in like a movie or TV show here and there, which I've been able to do successfully up until this COVID thing came about. But I want to grow within each of those areas. So that's the goal. And I know someday I'm going to be touring a lot more than I am at home. So maybe theater and television and film won't be as much of a possibility for me. But while it still is, I want to really try to grow within that as much as I can.
Absolutely. And one of the things, if you haven't seen Kayla live yet, and hopefully when we'll get a chance soon, you bring a lot of theatrics that I feel like come from a little bit part of dancing, a little bit part of acting, and you bring that on the stage. And I don't always see that a whole lot anymore. Now, you've toured with a bunch of different types of bands and styles of bands. Could it benefit even a guy, from taking a few music class, like a few dance classes, to maybe move around the stage a little bit better instead of having their feet nailed to the floor?
I wouldn't go that far. I think it's just, it's important to, I'm all about authenticity, right, as an artist. So if that doesn't come natural to you, then I wouldn't say to try to move around more. I would just say, if you feel that you're holding yourself back due to nerves or whatever, to maybe just see what happens if you just let loose completely, because that's basically what I do. Of course, like my dance training and my acting, it appears as though I'm intentionally trying to deliver some sort of performance, but what's honestly happening is I just get on stage and I just let loose completely. And so a lot of things come up for me that sometimes really are not so nice and not so pleasant to look at, and that has to be okay for the audience member. Right. There was one show we had, Nate never lets me forget this. Nate, the drummer in Witch Mountain, he told me there was a girl who got so scared that she had to leave. Oh. And I don't know how true that is, but maybe some version of that is true, but, I don't know. I feel like we all have our demons. And when I get on stage, I kind of use that as, a place for me to work through some of the things that I'm dealing with. And so sometimes it's not so pretty and it's not so fun to look at.
That does happen. I've seen it with several people on stage and that I think that's more the point. And yeah, I think you nailed it. It's like, if you're comfortable with doing that and letting go, that might be the more important part. I'm sure a lot of people have that in them. And sometimes it just, they just, for whatever reason, can't be free enough. And I guess, that's okay. It just happens as it happens. But I've seen that switch. I've seen your switch, and other people, it's almost like you walk through a portal when you go on stage and you become this different entity and you do your thing, and then you walk off stage and it's a totally different person.
Yeah. It's almost like that, but I think I would go further to say that different entity is really just who you really are. Because we walk around. Yeah, I feel like we walk around with these masks on and these, there's all this pretense, and it's like, people aren't really authentic in their real lives anymore. And there's just something about going to a metal show where, hopefully you're in an environment where you feel like you can be yourself and you can be free. And sometimes that's, like I said, not so pretty to look at, but there's real value, I think, in authenticity.
Yeah, we are what we are. And I've said it before on the podcast. It's like, I met my people and these are my people and I'm comfortable around them and I'm okay with being a little different or different than what the norm is. And I think that's an awesome thing, man.
Yeah.
So Now, I've talked about this previously a little bit, not a whole lot. Where do you feel things are headed as far as females in metal? I feel like I personally upset somebody by saying that a band at one point was female fronted because the female was a singer. And if I did upset anybody, I apologize for that. But, I don't see a lot of females in the genres. I see more now. Where do you think it's headed, and have you had any hard times with it?
I think there's going to be more and more, and I think, I don't see a reason why less females would want to front bands. I think it's only going to grow due to the ones who kind of came out in the front and then pulling inspiration from those people. Of course, more women are going to want to do that. I personally haven't run into too much difficulty, or if I have, I just haven't been paying enough attention to notice.
Right.
But I certainly don't have anyone coming directly to me talking shit, saying, "Oh, you're a female, so you can't do this." Like, I don't think anybody's had the balls to come up to me and try to say something like that to me. But, who knows? Maybe people have their own biases. And so maybe there are opportunities that I don't know about that I miss out on because of it. But, I think there's a lot of judgment that goes on. And I think, it's sad to hear these stories. And I luckily haven't had anything like that happen to me. But, yeah, as far as the whole term female fronted is concerned, I'm personally not a fan of it. I think that it's important that, because when you talk about a band being female fronted, and like, there are some people who use that as a genre, but it's like, okay, there are so many female fronted bands that fall under completely different genres. And
right.
I think people who naturally lump all those bands together, it just shows the kind of person that they are. Like, you have this judgment, this bias or whatever, and you're basically like showing your ass by lumping all these bands together just because they're female fronted.
Right. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't think it makes any sense either, but I've seen a lot of people get really upset about it. I'm kind of in the place where it's like, I can't control what people want to call my bands or how they want to, what genre they want to put them in.
Right.
But if I have the choice, I'd say don't put me in any genre, because it's just true of the music that it's so different from moment to moment that, I don't want us to categorize ourselves within any genre anyway. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And, being with what you've just said, I want to just go a little bit further. So you're a woman of color. So how does that affect, I guess, I don't know, does it do anything different? Or do you get people of color, like women of color, that are like, thank you, I can be in this genre? And the reason I ask, I interviewed this young band called Grail, and the drummer is black. And I asked him, how he felt about it, and he felt like he was an outlier in the community. And I said, do you think it's going to change? And he says he didn't really see it. He didn't really think it will. He says, maybe, I don't know, hit me up 10 years from now, maybe the answer will be different. What do you feel would happen? Do you feel that more people of color are coming into the genres? And I'm specifically saying like the stoner doom kind of genre.
Oh, yeah.
Because I see it in thrash, I see it in death metal and such.
Yeah, I see it in those other genres too. I wish that I could say for sure, but I honestly, I don't pay enough attention to confidently give an answer. But from what I see, I don't really know of any other. I know of like one or two other bands that we've played with that actually had female fronted or Black women fronting the bands.
Right.
But I think, of course, when you have people that are kind of going out in the front and being the first ones, then there are going to be other people that pull inspiration from that, who feel like, okay, now I can do this. But I don't think I'm that person. I think that there have been many Black women who have come before me who have kind of paved the path. So I don't get people coming up to me saying, I was really inspired by you because, we look the same and now I feel like I can do this. I don't necessarily get that just because I'm not one of the first. But if anybody ever did feel that way, I would certainly be very honored.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, in going with that, so, I see the stuff that you put on social and, with your, either vocal challenges or vocal ideas or trying something new. And I know that you still do vocal lessons, correct?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. And, let me start out. What is the youngest person that you teach a vocal lesson to? I've
taught recently. My youngest student was 6.
So, male, female?
A little girl.
And, what does she tell you what she wants to sing? Or do you just teach like the basics first and then, get into something different later on?
I always start with the basics, especially with all my students, but I think it's different. The reason is different from children to adults.
Right.
The reason I start with the basics with children is because they're probably just learning the basics. The reason I start back to the basics with my adult students is because I have a certain way that I teach that includes certain vocabulary, and certain, I've just picked up things here and there from my touring and my experience in musical theater, and have been able to kind of combine the two to create a vocal technique that I feel really serves the vocalist.
Right.
Just a different way of breathing and, different ways of doing the typical vocal exercises that we all hear. So I always go back to the beginning with all my students, but for different reasons.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And if somebody wants to get a vocal lesson from you, how do they do that?
You can find me on Facebook. My artist page is at Kayla Dixon Singer, but also if you just type my name in the Facebook search, I'll pop up. And you can go on there and request a time slot right on my Facebook artist page. I'm trying to get a website up soon, but that takes a lot of work. So.
Well, geez, you got your hand in so many pots. I understand. It's okay. It'll happen. It always will. And you know what? I do appreciate you talking about the basics. And I have a question about the basics of this other thing that it used to be called vegetarian, vegan, what have you. And now I see a lot of talk about just straight plant-based diet. I don't know when that term came in. I'm kind of fascinated with when certain terms hit, like I think the 2020 term of this year is social distancing by far.
Yeah.
So of course, right. So with a plant-based diet, and that's what you subscribe to, or you do, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, they're at their edge. They're tired, man. They're tired of eating meat, and they want to change their life. They want to feel a little bit different, maybe, or change their eating habits and they want to go plant-based for whatever reason, what's the easiest way to start?
Oh gosh. Honestly, so when I've been vegetarian since I was 8. I think that I saw like something. I don't know why my mom let me watch the news, but I would sit there watching the news and it was very traumatizing. But I saw something about mad cow disease. That's right around when that was happening. And I was like, I'm not eating meat anymore. Like, obviously, of course. And then eventually it turned into more of I actually don't believe in killing animals thing.
Right.
So my morals kind of got involved. And then I think I went fully vegan sometime around 2012. But I did not know what I was doing. So at first I was, and this goes back to the whole difference between vegan and plant-based.
Okay. You
can be vegan and not eating a plant-based diet. Just because something's vegan doesn't mean that it's not made of chemicals and stuff that isn't even really considered food. Like I can go to McDonald's and get, although I'm not sure if they fry the fries in animal fat, but on the off chance that they don't, I could go to McDonald's and get like a large fry, but it wouldn't be plant-based because it's not even really technically food.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so it's going down a little deeper.
Yeah.
The full plant-based.
So it's kind of, it's about making sure that everything that you consume is a whole food. I think that it comes from the ground, and that it's not some, I don't know, genetically modified or created in a lab type deal.
Right.
Yeah, but for someone who's just starting out, I would say the only advice that I have, because I don't know where to tell people to go or what information to look for, because I kind of just figured it all out on my own and got my information from a lot of different sources. But the one piece of advice that I have is to not go the route of trying to eat everything that you would normally eat without the meat and without the cheese, because you're not going to get the nutrients that you need.
Right.
You need to figure out how to substitute, and you need to make sure that what you're substituting with is going to deliver you the same amount of protein and the same amount of all the other nutrients that you need. So for example, like if you would normally have like a cup of ground beef or something, you need to make sure that the amount of lentils or beans that you substitute with equals the same protein amount. Getting enough protein is a big thing. And it's that common thing that you hear. Like a lot of people ask me, oh, how do you get your protein? I'm just worried about you getting your protein. But really it's just like, it's not that hard.
Right.
And there are actually a lot of plant-based, sources that yield more protein, than animal products. And that's normally the case for all nutrients.
Well, yeah, can't you
general.
just use like a pea protein every once in a while or a hemp protein, or is that a no-go?
Pea protein, hemp protein, yeah. I mean, any of those things work. I take a protein shake every day just because I'm extremely busy. But if you have the time, you actually don't need an external supplement.
Right.
But it does take time, and none of us really have that kind of time. But on the off chance that you do, I'd say focus on getting all your nutrients from your food, and don't rely so much on supplements to deliver what you need.
Now, let me ask you this, because I don't think we discussed it last time. So you stopped eating meat at an early age. Was that supported by your parents, or was it taught? Like, I mean, if so, bravo to them for like, for doing that. But like, what was the back and forth with the parents? Were they on board with it right away, or?
Well, I lived with my mom and my grandparents, and my grandma was already a vegetarian. So it wasn't a big deal at all. And it was,
Right.
it was, of course, supported. There was no pushback or anything like that. So I was lucky in that sense. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And I know, okay, so again, in going on social media, I saw that you do like your coffee, much like myself. And I know you had a couple of different types. Now, have you ever, I have my favorite, and I'm trying to wean myself off coffee now. Have you tried matcha, and do you have any thoughts on it?
So matcha actually has, well, from what I have read, and I don't know if this is correct, but
Right.
I feel it too in my body whenever I consume matcha, that it has more caffeine than coffee. And so you have to be very careful with your amounts.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of matcha. I go for the matcha on tour because I don't do coffee on tour due to the drying effect that it has on the mucous membranes, which affects the vocal cords
Right.
greatly. So I'm always getting the matcha lattes instead of, coffee or whatnot. But I also try to stay away from caffeine as much as I can. I think every day I have like 1 cup of coffee in the morning, and then I have my pre-workout later, and that's about it.
Let me ask you, if you have your coffee, now what do you put into it? Anything, or you just drink it black?
So I put L-theanine, and so that's actually a supplement that is derived from green tea.
Yep.
And when combined with caffeine, it takes away that jittery feeling that some people get from caffeine.
Sure.
And it also helps with, your cognitive space, like your, I don't know, focusing more, I guess.
Sure. Clarity. Yeah.
Yeah, so I take that, and I also put, I get something called performance mushrooms, which is a combination of I think it's like lion's mane, reishi, maitake, and some other mushroom.
Probably.
Yeah, probably cordyceps in there too.
Right.
And I put that in there, and I find that really helps. And I also put in MCT oil, and then I
Yes.
use oat milk.
Nice. Oh, that because I was going to ask, that was going to be one of my questions. It's like, I've tried the Bulletproof thing a little bit, and I was doing it initially. Obviously, you wouldn't, but use the butter. But I was using that and MCT oil, and then I got off. Believe it or not, I got off the butter and just put a little MCT oil, and it seemed fine. I had no problem with it. I thought it was a great way to get it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that it really works well for me. I do cardio at least 3 times a week, and I find that it does help. I definitely notice a difference. So yeah.
Perfect timing. Let's get into that for a minute. So this training, so I see you do a lot of training online, and obviously we do it for mental health, for physical health, etc. So if you're on tour, do you bring anything, any apparatuses on tour, or how do you get your workouts in when you're on the road?
I always bring my resistance bands, and I usually bring a pair of 15-pound weights and 25-pound weights, and that usually does it for me. And I just do more reps than I usually would,
Sure.
because the weight is lower. And I just run whenever I can. Sometimes we're not in such a good area, so I also bring a jump rope with me, and that kind of gets the job done too. But it's just about really having the motivation. Like, it takes an extreme amount of motivation, because when you're touring in a van, when you're not in a bus and waking up at the next venue in the morning and,
Right.
and it's all nice for you. But when you're touring it in a van and you are getting maybe 4 to 5 hours of sleep and then needing to get up early the next morning and drive to the venue, it takes a lot of motivation and willpower to get up before everyone else and get your workout in. But I've noticed that, you know, I function well on tour on maybe 6 to 7 hours of sleep.
Right.
I don't really need a full 8 hours. I'm just that kind of person.
Sure.
Especially when I'm working out every day. I have enough energy throughout the day because of that, I think. So it works out well for me. Sometimes we're at a hotel that has a gym, and that's always very nice. But yeah, I make an effort every day, no matter what, no matter where we are. Sometimes that means setting up, you know, out in the parking lot in the empty space next to the van.
That's
and
right.
just and doing what you got to do.
So and also in regards to your training, is there anything that you do in training that's actually for your voice? And I know this sounds strange, but I'm thinking like, okay, so I'm a massage therapist, and I do a lot of anterior cervical work on people with that are whiplash, that have whiplash issues, or now tech neck, whatever you want to call it, because you're constantly in a state of flexion. So is there anything that you do as a stretch or training for maybe the neck musculature, the upper pec musculature to do something for your voice?
Well, I definitely do cardio for my lung capacity,
Right.
which helps, you know, it helps with projection. It helps with sustaining notes and just overall stamina on stage. As far as the neck muscles, I just honestly, I try to be very conscious of the way that I'm moving on stage, because, you know, if you're headbanging like crazy, you're absolutely going to get a bang over. You're absolutely going to be sore as fuck the next day. So,
Right.
it's just important to be conscious about the way that you're moving your neck. I also have slight scoliosis, so I'm typically at the chiropractor every 2 weeks, but I haven't been doing that because of COVID. But also, you know, when you're on tour, it's really hard to find a good chiropractor. There are these clinics that are opening up where you can walk in and pay, which I'm very skeptical of.
Right.
Because nobody that it's been so hard for me to find someone who will just use their entire body weight force on me, but that's what I need. So typically I'll go in and, you know, they'll crack me a little bit, but it won't be what I need.
Right.
So I just, you know, when you're on tour and you don't have access to that, I think it's all about staying conscious of how you're moving your body on the stage in order to prevent, you know, having to go in and do those stretches. But I mean, you know, whenever I do have a sore neck, I do the typical neck stretches.
Right.
But I think it's important to stretch and hold for a long time as opposed to just rolling your head around.
Yeah.
Because what I notice is that doesn't really help much.
Well, slow and low, you get that myofascial movement, the movement of what's called the fascia that surrounds the muscle. Then it gives the muscle more space to move. Pure and simple.
Yeah.
As simple as that might sound.
Absolutely.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So, lastly, I wanted to talk to you about some of the books that you've been reading. I've seen some stuff in so heady of like Michio Kaku and et cetera, talking about superstring theories and et cetera. Is that just now? Do you ever read some of that stuff and get a concept or an idea for a song?
I do, especially when I was in that power metal band, Helion Prime, because all of their songs are very science fiction based. But
Yes.
even with the stuff that isn't science based, well, especially with the stuff that isn't science based, I get a lot of inspiration. And, you know, typically my lyrics come from me reading any kind of like spiritual content, exploring these like spiritual ideas and kind of branching off of that. But yeah, I'm reading 4 books right now, and I'm reading like a book about the music business, which I'm always reading that kind of stuff. That's never anything special, but
Right.
I'm reading The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, which is a large book and very there's a lot of data given, and so it's kind of been hard for me to get through, because I just think, it's just, things are more interesting when there's a story. But
Absolutely.
I'm also reading a book called Subliminal: How Your Unconscious Mind Rules Your Behavior, and that's been really fun to read. Yeah, and it's basically just about the subconscious mind, and talks about patterns of human behavior, and that's really interesting. And then I'm still trying to get through Parallel Worlds by Michio Kaku,
Jeez.
which is the science book that I'm reading. But he makes it so easy.
Yes, he does.
To read, and that's what makes it so fun and enjoyable. But yeah.
But still, it's like you don't even have to lift weights. I mean, all the heavy lifting is in that reading right there. There's a lot, and it really is kind of awesome, because I don't know, I did like 20 years ago or whatever. I'd see people and I'm like, just like, that was weird. And now, as you read books like this over time, you get that, oh, I see what they were doing. They had bop bop bop, or they were more like dot dot dot. And it just kind of, it's an odd thing to watch. Even, I don't know, have you ever, like, I watched movies and I'm like, oh, that person is this personality, that person's this personality. That's why they put that in the movie, or else, the movie arc wouldn't have happened the way it did.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a people watcher,
Right.
I think growing up as an actor that has a big role in that. Like, they tell you, especially if you're taking a class like in Stanislavski technique, you will hear a lot of teachers telling you to observe, go out in the world and just observe people and observe their behavior and the way that they interact.
Right.
And try to bring some of that authenticity to the stage. Especially, when I started branching out into television and film, it's much more subtle. And it has to be a whole hell of a lot more authentic in order for it to read properly.
Yeah, or else it just looks fake.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to do a lot of research and kind of, not that I'm not a person, but it's always easier to learn about people by looking at other people than by looking at yourself.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm constantly having those aha moments where I realize, like, oh, this person is this way and they're that way because they probably have some childhood trauma or whatnot. And, along with, educating myself more about people and the way our brains work, I've kind of come to the conclusion that other people's opinions matter a whole lot less than I thought they did. And that's been hard for me, because I'm such I care, and it's not that you can't care, but it's that you have to realize that people don't have any idea what they're talking about when they're trying to tell you how to live your life, because literally nobody else can.
Right.
Literally nobody else has any idea what they're talking about when they're trying to give you advice, because they're not you. It's that plain and simple.
Isn't there something like they're speaking through their eyes when they give you the advice or something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Even if somebody wants to help, the advice that another person can give you about your life is going to be drastically less accurate than anything that you could discover for yourself. So I've kind of had to, and then you've got these people who maybe want to see you do what they tell you to do because they get some kind of kick out of it. And so you have to be careful to watch out for those people too, because they might be giving you bad advice. You never know what a person's agenda is. And so I've had to kind of just learn to like close people out when they try to give me their opinion, especially if it's if I haven't asked for it.
Right.
So it's been really good for me, I think, like learning about all this stuff.
It's a process. It's a whole growth thing, and it sounds like you're on an awesome journey with it. That's actually the reason I wanted to talk to you, because when I see all these things that you're doing, it's like, wow, man, she's really getting at it, and I appreciate a person like that. So thank you for sharing that side of you on social media, and I'm sure somebody's going to catch a few nuggets of wisdom from you.
I hope so.
So lastly, what's happening with the bands that you're currently in right now? What do we got in the works?
So Witch Mountain is writing. We're working on another album, and hopefully, I mean, we're in the beginning stages of writing. So,
right.
We'll have something out sooner or later. And Dress the Dead has a bunch of songs, and we're shopping around. We're trying to make sure that we make the right deal with the right label, and we don't want to rush that process. So as soon as we're able to find the right home, then there will be a lot of music released. Some that people have heard, and some completely brand new songs. And then we're starting already to write. For a second album. So we've got a lot of material that's just itching to get out there, that we're just looking for the right home for.
Fantastic. And just one more time, Kayla, how can everybody reach you on social media?
So on Instagram, I am at Kayla_Dixon_vocals. But if you search my name, I'll probably just pop up. And on Facebook, I'm at Kayla Dixon Singer. But you can also just search me and I'll pop up. And on Twitter, I think I'm at Kayla Dixon 1. And I've just recently started posting more to Twitter.
Gotcha.
And I'm not anywhere. Oh, I'm also on YouTube. And if you search my name, I'll pop up. And I post covers there frequently. Mm-hmm. I also collect as many live videos and music videos as I can from all my different projects and put them into playlists to kind of gather it all in one place for people to be able to look at. You can also find all my guest vocal appearances on there too on YouTube. And I'm not anywhere else. I'm not on TikTok or anything like that.
The wonderful TikTok. Yeah, we'll just leave that there. We'll leave that over there and do that thing. Kayla, thank you so much for talking. I always appreciate talking to you. Have the best if I don't see you in 2020, and look forward to seeing some new material coming out real soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla, for taking the time to chat with us. I sincerely appreciate it. It is great to talk with an idea person, somebody that is consistently motivated. It reminds me of that quote, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I mean, it all seems impossible until it's actually done. Then you move on to the next task. That is how to do it. Stay with it. You'll stick through it, and you will be rewarded with victory in the end. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate all the support. Next up will be Melissa, Miss Melissa, the Stoner Witch from Stoner Witch Radio. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. Haven't even recorded it yet, but we have it set up, and we'll put it out as soon as we can. Thanks, everybody. Take care, and don't forget to stay heavy.